welcome. Are you ready to start writing? Let's get right to it. In this video, I would like you to think about your writing as building a house, and we would like to build the best house that we can using the tools and the building blocks available. So our blocks are our words and phrases and sentences that we use, and our tools are the apps or your laptop, your phone, your notebook and pen. And how can we create the best structure? Let us think of three important aspects. The first point is keep it real, right from your heart. You need to focus on interests, enjoyment, your pain or sorrow, things that you really know. And you need to care about your characters, because if you don't care about them, then your reader will not care either. So don't be afraid to write from your childhood or write about personal experiences and incorporate them somehow into your story. The second thing is to be more specific. Try not to be vague or general when you are describing your character or environment. Think of interesting vocabulary that will bring your character to life. How would they speak? How would they behave? And how does this reveal more about them? How can we show this to our readers? And the third thing is to try to avoid repetition. Try not to use the same words in the paragraph, and try to avoid using too many adverbs or adjectives, and instead focus on interesting verbs. I wanted to give you an example of this. So here we have a character that is portrayed in a couple of sentences. Joe walked along the long winding road. It was a hot, sunny day, and he was really very tired. He sighed unhappily. So this is quite a general impression that we have of Joe. How could we make it more specific? How could we make it more interesting? And how can we make our reader care about Joe, whether we make them like him or dislike him? Here we have a different impression of Joe. Joe squinted into the sun, sweat trickling down his forehead into his eyes. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes, briefcase banging against his legs. He had to get that sale. So in these sentences, we have a different vision of Joe. Who is he? He's an adult. He is working. It's a hot day. He's anxious. Does it make us care more about his character? Does it make him more interesting? And then a different impression of Joe. Joe kicked a pebble that skittered along the path. He almost tripped over a shoelace and bent down to tie it. One knee was still grazed and bloody. He wiped his nose and sniffed. He would never let them get him again. So, what do we think of Joe in these sentences? We get an impression perhaps of someone younger, someone vulnerable, and we give the reader different feelings from the words we have chosen. Another example of a character: Joe strolled down the sidewalk whistling, one hand in his jeans pocket. He grinned, remembering the girl, so eager to please. The corner store was opening. He might buy bread, an excuse to give his wife for being up so early. So what is your impression or feeling about Joe from these sentences? You can see that we have taken a character and changed the feeling that we give to the reader by the words we have chosen, and trying to use more interesting verbs and trying to create an impression of the character's feelings or intentions or purpose. Our goal as writers is not to write to please everyone. Unfortunately, we cannot please everyone. Some people enjoy fantasy, some enjoy crime or thrillers. Everyone has different tastes, and so it's impossible to please everyone. We just need to write to the best of our ability and remember that writing is not just entertainment, it's communication. It is how we talk to people, it's how we give information to people. Even in the workplace, writing can be very important when you are sending emails or notes. It is a way of showing people how you feel and think. The best way to do this is to try to keep it simple. For example, if we think about dialogues, "No," she said, we could expand the description to give us more information, but it's not a good idea to use too many of these tags like replied, gasped, moaned, cried, shouted. It doesn't really tell us much about the character. It can become a more lazy way of trying to portray a character instead of giving your reader more information, more specific information. So limit your use of adverbs. Words like always, never, soon, often, just, or all of these ly words, beautifully, happily, sadly, slowly, kindly. Unfortunately, sometimes these words just become convenient and they do not add much to the information or tell us much about the character. For example, we could be more specific with this sentence. She sang beautifully. That word beautifully is a little bit vague. We could say she sang in a fine soprano. It tells us more about her voice. Or we could say her singing lifted the roof, and it gives an emotion to the sentence. Or when she sang, they covered their ears, and it tells us her singing was not that good. Each of these is a little bit more specific than the general word beautifully. Try not to use these phrases. There was, I know, I saw, he heard. It's very tempting, and I do it myself, and I have to go back and edit and check, and some of them escape me. It's very easy to use these phrases in conversation and in writing, but there are better ways of writing. Instead of saying there was knocking at the door, we could say loud knocking startled him. Instead of I know a man in the city, we could say the bald accountant hunched over his desk in New York. Instead of I saw a bird in the tree, we could say the bird descended on his shoulder. And instead of he heard a loud noise from the kitchen, you could say milk clattered and splashed to the floor. So for your task today, let's try to improve on these sentences and think of more interesting ways that we can write them. There was a ginger cat on the cushion. He saw a taxi arrive. I know a man in that city. He heard someone knocking. It was unbelievable. Use your creative skills to make these sentences interesting and make your reader care about what you have written. I hope that you will enjoy your writing and ask for opinions, but at the same time focus on improving yourself and improving your skills. You can do it. You can find my books on Amazon and you can follow me on social media. All strength to your writing arm.